Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I'm so excited to be here with the great Yo-Yo Ma, one of the best known, best loved musicians in the world, an activist for change and bringing people and cultures together, something we could all use more of right now. And thanks for being with us.
Edward, it's so great to see you, you sexy beast. And it's
We talked
wonderful to
about
be with
that
you again.
before. Thank you, Yo-Yo. It's just wonderful to have you back with Time. I wanted to start. We caught up, I guess, a couple of months ago, and I think we were all just beginning to get into this routine of being at home, which I know is so much of a change for you. 36 countries in the Bach project alone, and I'm guessing it's been a while since you were not traveling for this length of time. How's that settling in on you, and how are you doing?
Well, like you, in some ways, I feel like I'm taking a sabbatical because it's different from what I've done for 45 years, and so my abnormal lifestyle, which is to be away from home almost 70% of the time, has now, and my yearning to be a normal person, this wish has actually been fulfilled. And the problem is, of course, my wife has to deal with me morning, noon, and night, and that's a question you may need to ask her as to how that feels. But in general, all the tensions that we've always felt being home, I now realize comes from the constant toing and froing, getting ready to leave, getting nervous about doing something different, coming home exhausted and recuperating. And that's just all gone. And so to live what I think is a more normative lifestyle during the most abnormal time ever is really surreal. Because I think to be, in that sense, a very privileged person, to have food on the table, to be relatively safe, is while all the fractures in society and in both at the biomedical level, at the economic level, at the racial equity level, it's kind of a trifecta of crises that I think it makes one do some very, very deep thinking, and this is the time to do it.
When we eventually get back to some version of some new normal, as we rebuild out of the pandemic, as companies and nations spend trillions of dollars to rebuild and reset, have you thought about what do we take with us? What have we learned in this period that can be brought into that next step?
I feel like we can think about it in three ways. The first, and I'm thinking of it. Let's use a weather metaphor. I feel like we've just been through a blizzard, and during the blizzard, we all had to kind of suddenly get together and find a way to survive. And now the blizzard, the first blush or the first trimester of this pandemic is past us. And now we're facing a very long winter. We're settling down. We're not sure what it is. We don't know what kind of winter it is, but we know it's going to be a long winter. It's going to be longer than we thought. But at the same time, I think thoughts, because we have time to think, is we can actually think about the very long term. And the very long term is the Ice Age. What kind of Ice Age is it going to be? How are we going to, do we have a choice in how we want to live? How we want society to be as we go through this Ice Age? So I've been thinking about all those things from a cellist's point of view. So, what is a musician to do? And I think the first question that I asked myself for the immediate part is to say, well, what can I do to help? You know, the Mr. Rogers question. So, like, you know, in a crisis, always look for the helpers. Well, okay, the first helpers, the helpers are the frontline workers, are the delivery people, are they're out there doing things, and how can we help? So, one of the reactions I had was to Zoom into hospital rooms, into patient care rooms, into sort of frontline workers, and just talking sometimes or playing for them, and creating songs of comfort to wherever it might make a little difference.
I wanted to talk a little more about songs of comfort, and also just let people who are watching know where to watch and where to listen. But this is something you began doing in the first days of stay-at-home directives, and I'm interested. I think the first one I saw, which was so moving, was Dvorak going home.
Oh,
I don't know if that was the first one, but it was
I
the
think
first
it
one I
was.
saw, and so stirring as we were all going home, and such beautiful music. But how did you decide to launch that? How do you choose what music comforts you? As a guide to all of us who are comforted by music.
Well, Edward, it's actually incredibly simple. We were sitting at our office one day and saying, "Gee, this sounds pretty serious. What can we do? What can we do to help?" And then I had a cello there, and said, "Well, why don't we just record some things and send it out as?" And I think Jonathan, our colleague, said, "Well, yeah, songs of comfort. That's great. Let's do that. Let's and we recorded a number of them, and that's how it started. I think the motivation was obviously, you know, what can we do to help, and the content was, what can I play for cello alone? Right?
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's totally very
Right.
practical.
Makes
Like,
sense.
you know, this is okay. I know this song. I know that song. I know another song, and so that's how we started. And a dozen of those later, you know, we started saying, well, you know, part of what gives comfort is actually people working together and collaborating. And so now, and then. George Floyd happened, so it's like, well, maybe we need songs of change, and we're gradually, so I started working with other people. Rafi did one from Baby Beluga, the 40th anniversary. Sandy Boynton did something with Cartoonish for the 14th of July. And Mo Willems, who is a wonderful illustrator, we did something together. Angelique Kidjo, you know, said, "Hey, do you want to do something?" And she dropped in something, and so gradually we put music together, you know, and figured out a way so that it feels like we were in one place and joining forces to express something.
You've always brought music to people in times of hardship and tragedy, and I remember you playing at the first 9/11 memorial.
Oh my gosh.
But you've also, so much of your work has been about music as a means to bring people together, as a force for inclusion, and I'm just, you know, we had Elton John on this program a few weeks ago,
Oh, that's so great.
who described music as the greatest unifying force in the world. Wonder if I don't know, would you go that far, and maybe share a little bit about how you're thinking about music in this time of terrible division as well as broader hardship?
Sure. Well, I think one of the things, the simplest way to describe music is that it's it's energy, because it's a sound moves air molecules. It hits our ears, and we react to it. It's that basic. And so sound, or organized sound, is something that is both physical and ephemeral. You can't quite touch it and hold it, but and it travels lightly, which is what I think makes it really interesting, because if you like something, it's in your ear, it's in your head, you own it. Ideas are like that. Words can be like that. But words can be also controversial, because words can divide people, right? You say something I don't like and I can take offense. But sound is something that is both physical and somewhat it's ephemeral, because it travels lightly. And the thing is, and what it does is that it actually stirs both your heart and your mind. So if you want to, and if someone likes something, it's theirs. So if you say culture can actually turn the other into us, well, music can do that.
We talked about music as a unifying force. This is, of course, a time when every industry is looking at its diversity, lack of diversity, history of injustice, and the classical music world is, of course, no exception. How are you thinking about those difficult conversations in the world that you're so much a part of, in terms of righting past wrongs and creating a more equitable musical world?
Well, I feel so incredibly determined to reach out and to actually contact, work with, nurture, mentor, talk to, and first of all, listen. Listen to what people have to say. Listen to, friends who or young people who've been through programs that I know, talking to them, find out what they're thinking, what their lives are like, and then talking to other people just to form networks, relationships, and to do things with them. Emmanuel Axe, my good friend, he's doing the same thing. He's contacting, Juilliard pre-college to say, I want to teach kids that are just young, and, kids of color, doesn't matter. I just want to be with them. I want it. And the most important thing is to listen and to start. Inaction is not a possibility. And I think, and from starting and from continuing to listen and learning, and talking to colleagues, okay, I'm trying this. Okay, that didn't work well. I'm trying this. What are you doing? And to just constantly move this. Isn't this the American experiment? Aren't we living the American experiment? This is not, United States is not a lockbox. To use an old Al Gore term, it's not a lockbox. The United States is part of an experiment. We're constantly evolving that experiment in order to get to a more perfect union. And yes, we don't have a perfect union, but that's okay, as long as we keep working toward what is a more perfect union. And let's use everything that we have to help us determine what that union is.
You started the Silk Road Collective more than 2 decades ago, focused in part on inclusion and and hope and progress, as you just described. Do you feel, looking back across the couple of decades that you've been involved in that work and related work, that we've made progress in America and in music in particular?
Well, I think there's more and more acknowledgement that all of music is connected, so that genres are not separate from one another. So that, and I think music does break down ethnic identities. We just came out with a recording of essentially contemporary American bluegrass related music, which is Scottish, Irish ancestry, and definitely deep African influence. So, and here's this great American music that is in fact a fusion and successful fusion of these different influences. Jazz is the same thing. And there's a new documentary called Rumble, which talks about actually in the what we think is sort of rock music with African influence actually has a lot of indigenous influence also, which I didn't know about. But this is all being talked about and accepted more and more. And I think in that sense, because music travels lightly, and because if you like it, you can combine it. We don't have it's the formation of it is that allows for integral unity, and is something that succeeds, whereas in society it's a little harder.
Thank you, Yo-Yo. It's always great talking with you and hearing about your work and the impact your music is having all around the world.